Hello, everybody. I'm Juliet Foster, and welcome to the Future of Utilities webinar, tackling the T word. I'm going to give you a clue about the T word. What does it take to transform an energy retail business? There you go. Transform, that's the key word. Well, as we all know, change is inevitable as the transition towards net zero gathers pace. Large retailers, not just in Europe, but around the world, face profound strategic decisions on whether to reorganise themselves as net zero leaders now, or perhaps risk being left behind by agile and more ambitious challenges. So what does it take to transform an energy retail business? How can retailers keep customers at the heart of their transformation strategies? And what technology can enable operational excellence? They're big questions, and I'm delighted to say that I won't be answering them by myself, but I know a panel of experts across the range of the industry who are going to do the hard work for me. I'm going to ask them the questions and they're going to answer them. In fact, let's meet this panel now. They really are fascinating people. First up, we've got Lauren Lewis. Now, Lauren, I'm going to hand things over to you because what you're going to do is tell everybody what it is that you do and for whom.
Thanks, Juliet. So yeah, I'm Lauren Lewis. I'm the VP of Operations for OVO Energy, and I lead our field metering and pay-go businesses. I've been at OVO for just coming up to 4 years. Originally joined to lead our business through the transformation off the back of a large acquisition, which I'll talk a little bit about later when we get into all things T-word. And before OVO, pretty much a career consultant, so kind of bouncing around various strategy, operational and transformation roles. I'm really, really passionate about putting the customer at the heart of transformation, kind of building customer-centric operating models and getting to the heart of that pain and turning it into something better. And that's me.
It sounds really cool to me. Thank you so much. Now, let's meet our second panelist. His name's Wilco, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce your surname, Wilco. So look, put me out of my misery. How do you pronounce your surname? And when you've done that, can you tell us what it is that you do and for whom, please?
Yeah, thank you, Juliette. Yeah, my name is Wilco Schuif. I'm working for 16 years with Eneco. Eneco is a Dutch company who supplies energy in the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, and in the UK to residential customers and B2B customers. I worked for 16 years in trading, and I really learned there the importance of transformation, because as a consequence of the energy transition and the energy crunch, there is a very big volatility in volume and price. And that's why energy retail companies need to transform. 3 months ago, I stepped over from trading to the commercial domain. And because we have to provide new products to our customers. And that's my current responsibility, responsible for pricing and new products.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you so much for that, Wilco. Can I have a crack at your surname? Schkelf?
Yes.
Was that good?
It's almost there.
Perfect.
It's almost there. Yes,
Perfect.
Schuif. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
I've been rehearsing it for a year, so thank you so much for that. Let's move on to our final panelist, Neil Gohar. It is so good to see you. So again, you know the drill. If you can tell everybody what it is that you do and for whom.
You are brave, Juliet. My name is Neil Gohar. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Kaluza. So Kaluza is a technology provider that underpins a lot of the transformation, T-word, transformation projects with energy retailers. Personally, I've spent a little over 20 years in the energy industry. I don't know if that's depressing or exciting, maybe a little bit of both. The first decade was working inside of an energy retailer, and then the second decade working for various software companies, including one that I founded, as well as other companies like OPower, which exited and was acquired by Oracle. So I guess for the last 20 years, I've spanned sort of energy and technology.
Well, look, that's fantastic. And first of all, what I want to say to all of you is thank you so much for putting aside the time from your very busy schedules to be here. You have so much to give. And of course, you're all extremely passionate, and that's fantastic because the passion is coming over to my little neck of the woods in Southeast London. So thank you so much for that. But I guess that what you have gathered, the online audience, is that there is plenty of ground to cover in our time together. And I'm sure that you'll also want to be part of that conversation. And that's cool because we want you to be involved. So if there are any questions or comments you'd like to put to the panelists, nothing rude, please, then we would encourage you to do that. If you want to be involved in the conversation, send in your questions throughout the discussion via the question section on the right-hand side of the webpage, and we will do our very best to answer as many of those questions and comments as we can in the time available towards the end of the discussion. So panel, are you ready?
Yep.
Fantastic, excellent, thumbs up.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect, absolutely perfect. Let's start out then with a little bit of scene setting, because what we're going to do in this section of the conversation is to assess the factors that are driving the need for transformation in energy retail. And somebody had to draw the short straw on that opening question, and Lauren, you'll be delighted to know that it was you. But look, there are so many pressures on retailers today. We've got the race to net zero and the pressures that that in itself is imposing, and of course the cost of living crisis. But what are the key factors that are driving this need for transformation? Would you say we're talking about things which are largely existential?
I think yeah. There's probably like three main factors that I'd call out. The first one is that the nature of the energy sector itself is changing. So from massive expansion in terms of the number of suppliers that were in the market back in 29, I think it peaked at something like 59, and this concept of the big six, huge market share, to where we find ourselves now, which is actually a bit of a kind of consolidation due to pressures of price, of everything we've seen off the back of Brexit, COVID, the cost of living crisis. We're also seeing the fact that a number of energy companies it's less able to compete on price now with the regulation around the price cap and the margins there. So actually looking to other kind of products, other sources of revenue, other things to delight customers with and innovate there. And then, as you talked about the shift away from fossil fuels, the desire to take customers on that decarbonisation journey and in effect kind of own the home, and suppliers, organisations that are owning kind of a small part of the value chain, so this concept of just owning the bill, they're going to be left behind. So that part is fundamentally changing. Then you've got the changing needs of customers. So the fact that we see a massively different set of expectations from customers now to perhaps 5-10 years ago, like just a small example of that is we're now seeing that customers don't want to wait for longer than 90 seconds for us to pick up the phone to them. And that's probably reflective of the fact that we're a bigger kind of consumerist convenience culture. So we want to be able to engage with organisations that are easy to deal with, that can solve our problems. And in some ways, we actually don't want to speak to anyone. We don't want to contact anyone. We just want things to work. And so, we and other organisations are having to fundamentally change how we organise. So to thrive through change, to have speed to market, and to offer different products and services that become those kind of differentiating factors. And that's what's really driving that transformation, that need to make a step change.
Wilco, every organisation is different, but would you say that some of the things which you just heard from Lauren actually resonate with what you're seeing at Eneco?
Yeah, I do recognize it. Due to the energy transition and crunch, we do see two important effects which relate to each other. And the first one, customers are more aware about the topic of energy. From a price perspective, prices went really high, but also how sustainable is my energy? And we see that customers are willing to change. For example, last year we saw really a drop in the demand because the prices were very high, and so we saw people are willing to change their behavior. And also, as discussed during my introduction, due to the extreme price and volume volatility, we do see that current products which we provide to our customers are not suitable for the future. For example, customers with rooftop solar, currently in the Netherlands, they have a fixed price for the offtake and also for the feed-in, and that's a really big problem because we learned our customers that you can buy strawberries in the summer for a really good quality and a low price, and we learned them that you can do the same in December. Now, I can assure you in the Netherlands that's not possible because strawberries are really expensive and the quality is much worse than in the summer. But this is an example of our energy products. We have to learn our customers that the summer has another price in the summer than in the winter. And also from a sustainable perspective, if there is a lot of sustainable energy in the grid, then the price will also drop. But if there is no sustainable energy, then the price will rise. And we have to find products which customer can understand and also able to use.
Oh, some good points.
So this is very, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there that you put through, and again, the way that the customers are changing things, the way they conduct their business, and the fact that you have to meet those expectations, which are constantly changing. And let me bring it on to you, Neil, because look, all of this is happening, brilliantly outlined by Lauren and Wilco, but it's taking place within the context of net zero, getting there on time. But what are the key transformation strategies that retailers need to embrace if they're not just going to meet the needs of these customers, but at the same time stay competitive? Because it's a real rat run out there, isn't it?
And no, it sure is. And with price volatility and with net zero mandates coming down from governments and policymakers and new opportunities, quite frankly, for product bundling, right? All of these things are happening. I think it's more important than ever to understand what's the aim. What do we want to be as an energy retailer, right? Do we want to be the lowest cost provider and scrape margin down to the bone, but we're going to make it up with volume? Is that the kind of retailer we want to position as, or do we want to be the highest margin retailer in our specific market at the cost of some volume? Or is the name of the game in our specific region getting down to the most creative acquisition channels and the cheapest acquisition channels? Now, strategy is never that simple, right? It's hard to pick one of those lanes. It's some combination of all of them. But I've been talking to a lot of retailers across Europe and Asia over the last few years, and the one commonality that I hear, regardless of what their strategy is and what are the dials that they're pressing and not pressing, the one commonality that they have is that the cost of change is excruciatingly high and complex. So even if you have the perfect strategy for your specific market, changing towards that from a technology perspective, from a organization perspective, from an operating model perspective, is just enormously high. And this is, in fact, I think there was a survey that Ernst & Young did recently where they said 94% of energy retail executives have said that is the top concern that they have about their business. It's not that they don't have the right strategy, it's that it costs too much to use their business and transform their business. And that's why I think about transformation as a sort of a bimodal approach where you've got one track, which is about simplifying your business, automating it, taking cost out of it, so you can create the leverage to feed into the second track, which is really about innovating and iterating, which those two tracks have to exist together. One can't exist.
Yeah, the one feeds into the other. And let's follow on from that, Lauren, because look, the two tracks, at the end of the day, if they're actually going to work successfully, you need to have a good cultural shift. The two tracks are transformative. So what are the necessary changes that you need to make culturally? And more importantly, how can you make sure that they work their way through the entire organization? Because and I know that some people don't like change, or they're happy to embrace it, but within their own silos.
I think what Neil was saying really resonates with me, and culture change is arguably just as important a foundation as technology. And what we see now is that all organizations are facing into this absolute kind of chasm of change and transformation that's needed, and therefore in effect have to take their whole organization and all the people that sit in it on kind of big culture journeys. And having a great culture, having the ability to manage through change, to be agile is what will differentiate organizations, because the level of volatility and uncertainty in the market, in all organizations at the moment, is here to stay. That's just it. That's the new world that we find ourselves in. So getting a kind of really good understanding of culture and what that means is crucial to that. I think a couple of, key bits that for me really drive great culture transformation are how you create and nurture a really accountable and empowered set of people, and how you get that kind of decentralized decision-making kind of working really slickly. How you get those kind of big picture thinkers so you can join the dots. You're looking to have enterprise leaders in organizations that can, manage and metabolize change at the rate that we need to have real impact in the modern world. And kind of how do you lead with intent rather than direction? So much of how we've how we've led and how we've built cultures previously is about, well, I as a leader have all the knowledge. I'm going to impart my knowledge on you. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. And it's just, things are just too complex now to lead in that way. You can't expect one person to have all the answers. So you kind of got to flip it around. And I think, to your point, Juliet, in how does that kind of take root in an organization and be felt by all? You've got to create a totem, something that everyone can kind of connect back to in terms of culture. And that's not like a playbook that's the same in every organization. It's something that kind of really resonates. And, you know, at OVO, we have something called the OVO Way, which is sort of three strands. You know, how we organize, which is with agility, you know, how we're entrepreneurial at scale, you know, keeping our kind of startup roots. How we develop our people, so kind of activating potential, how we connect, so that kind of bringing people together and the power of collaboration, and then just sharing stories, you know, reinforcing that, giving people the literal feels so that they get, you know, the desire and the hunger to go deeper, to work in that way. And that for me creates that kind of shift that, you know, we want to see.
Yeah, I mean, let's follow on from this, because to a certain extent, you've actually answered the question I'm going to put to Wilco. But when you actually break it down, Wilco, it really depends on reorganization, the willingness to reorganize if you're going to deliver on that energy strategy. So, I mean, what is it that has to change at that fundamental grassroots level if retailers are actually going to not just change themselves, but really reach out to existing customers and find new ones as well, to actually say to them, look, we understand what you want, I get you, and here we are, we can do it.
Yeah. To give a very precise answer here, first, in the company, you have to understand what's your challenge. And for us, the challenge is we have to sell where our customer is and not where we are. We are, as an energy company, we know the dot on the horizon and we know what to do. But if I am going to explain that with today knowledge to a customer, the customer doesn't understand it. So our biggest challenge is we have to sell products where the customer is and explain them that we have to change. The strawberry example. So we are aiming at, our goal is to develop the best products and customer service while we are in transformation. So explaining the customer why and give them also a good example and proof that we are in transformation. Last month, we have launched our dynamic pricing product, and for us, this is one of the biggest examples. Okay, customer, here you do have the opportunity to use your energy while there is enough sustainable energy in the system because the prices are low. Then we prove to our customer, this is a change in products and this is what you get. But internally, there's also a change required. When you are a big corporate like Eneco, you need to evaluate your products across the whole horizontal value stream. So no separate, okay, I'm the commercial business unit, I'm the trading business unit, and let's optimize it from a very specific business unit perspective. That doesn't work. I'm now for 17 years in this business, and I've seen all models, but you have to approach it as one value stream. Then you get the winning products. The second one, also for the internal system, you need really, and this is an open door, but you really need sharp goals. So implement your OKRs with objectives and key results, including a smart quarterly planning, and make it very concrete to your internal organization. I think those examples are really prerequisites for being successful while you're in transformation. Yeah, and currently, Lauren was very clear about the entrepreneurship. For me, that's really important. I really like the internal entrepreneurs within Eneco, and my colleagues who are entrepreneurs. They are really important to make the change. I call it the U-turn, to make the U-turn in the business. And define also really clear goals. And we have 3 goals for our colleagues. Helping customers become more sustainable, generate more renewable energy, and balance and optimize the energy system. really simple, 3 goals which we are aiming. And based on these 3 goals, we are developing products for our customers. Yeah, and the last one, from a technical point of view, yeah, it's the key for success. We have a strong focus on digitization for our customers. And yeah, again, the great example was the dynamic pricing product, because there we combine customer data, offtake data with trading data. So customers do see the prices, the wholesale prices for next day. And I think that's a great example where technology bring new products to the customer.
Okay, well, look, thank you so much. I said it was scene setting. You've actually painted a very in-depth picture, all of you. So thank you so much for that. Let's move on now to the second part of our discussion, because we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the practical aspects around this subject, namely customers, technology, and managing for large-scale operational changes. Someone has to draw the short straw. Don't worry, Lauren. You can take a rest, because the person who's got the short straw is Neil. And aren't you happy about that? Because look, ensuring a customer-centric approach, we're all agreed, is very important for retailers, especially during that transformative period. But from your perspective, how do you think retailers can actually maintain a customer-centric approach throughout the entire transformation process? Because there is that risk that you could end up losing people.
Yeah. And in fact, I heard this quote a few years ago, and it's sort of been etched into my mind. And that is, the road to transformation projects is filled with the graves of energy executives, right? And we might, some of us maybe even personally know people that have, where the transformation project hasn't gone well and they've lost their jobs. Why does that happen? And I think, it is exactly for this reason. If you don't have that customer centricity as you're transforming the business, well, then what's left if the customers leave you, or you show up in too many news stories? We all show up in news stories, but too many negative news stories, right? And so I'm especially proud that we just a few weeks ago, we just finished this massive transformation and migration from OVO's old technology platform to a brand new platform, the Kaluza platform. And this was complex. It was really, really complex. So it was made up of OVO's legacy customer base, which was, a more digital savvy forward type of consumer base, but then also the company they acquired, which was very complex, right? And completely different demographic. These customers called in more. They're 2 times more likely to have a non-standard meter or payment type. So very, very complex consumer base. And we've gotten through that migration and that transformation. And I'd say that, so how did that happen? And I think there was a few critical things. One, we leveraged data throughout the process. So from the very beginning of the process, we identified the cohort of consumers which were actually the least risky, right? So they were on a standard meter, they paid on time, they never called the call center. Now you might say, wait, if you're starting this transformation project, why are you starting with the consumers that are just working fine? Well, precisely for that reason, because it gave us a great test bed to see how the system was performing, how the processes were performing, and was customer ease of transacting, did it remain high? And sure enough, it did. In all cases, sort of the transaction ease was above, a scale of 5, it was above 4.5, which was just as good, if not better than it was before. So we were doing a good job. But not only that, nailing the basics. So that's theme number 2, I think, for successful transformation, because it's so easy to get enamored in a transformation project with the shiny object, and you sort of lose the eye off of the simplicity and just making sure that 90% of consumers who just want to log in online, they can pay their bill on time, they can visualize their energy, and they're not surprised. As part of that, though, is to simplify the business. One of the things I hear over and over again with energy retailers is we have 400 tariffs in our product catalog. And some of those tariffs were created a decade ago because, somebody had an idea to do a dynamic time of use rate, but that's not even a rate that we offer anymore. But now we got to support those customers that joined that rate 10 years ago. I think the hard question is, can we get rid of that tariff and simplify our business? What are we really getting out of that product? Can we shrink it from 400 tariffs and product offerings down to 50? Let's nail those, and then we'll add new ones. Right. And that's hard. That kind of stuff is really hard to sort of peel away some of the complexity and simplify the business.
But that's why you're not in the graveyard.
Not yet, at least.
And Lauren isn't in the graveyard. I mean, in fact, nobody here is going in that graveyard. Okay, so let's be clear about this. But I mean, Lauren, look, you hinted about this in one of your previous answers, in fact, and this was OVO's acquisition experience. I saw you nodding along when you were listening to Neil, so some incredible familiarity there. But I mean, how did you manage to deliver for customers during this significant transformation? Because look, you know what? At M&A, it's always complicated because you're merging company cultures together to actually create one whole entity where ultimately the customer mustn't notice any difference.
Yeah, M&A hard, as you've already alluded to, and in this case, a reverse acquisition as well. So a smaller business, OVO, acquiring a larger traditional, one of the kind of previous big six in the energy industry, and so kind of overnight, OVO goes from mid-tier challenger brand, about 1.5 million customers, to third largest energy company with kind of 5 million customers. So it's a bit of a shock to the system. And then staring down this, right, how are we going to integrate these two very different businesses and very different kind of customer books? So a lot of what Neil says really resonates. So an opportunity, yes, to simplify and fix forward and build for the new, but also you've got customers at the heart of this that you need to take through that change, and you need to do that in a thoughtful way, whilst also in honesty, building for the future and creating the business that we wanted to create. The case that was behind that, that transaction. And I think a few reflections for me in terms of how you do that in a customer-centric way is, the first thing is you need to start with some level of stability and consistency. So, context, communications, so we, day one, communicating to all of the newly kind of acquired customers and saying, this is what's happened, don't worry, there won't be any changes, just really reassuring messages, because, you can read about these things in the paper and think, well, am I going to keep my energy supply? Like what's happening? And we saw a lot of negativity around that during some of the energy crisis and the solars, etc. So really important to communicate with customers and help them to understand what's going on and the benefits that are hopefully coming their way. Some super practical things in, now under one license, things like we have a concept of cheaper tariff messaging, effectively aligning some of that. So we've not got challenging customer journeys where they're kind of switching between OVO and this the other company that we acquired, when in effect we're the same business. So just some really basic stuff that could create kind of customer experience that can be easily avoidable. Early team integration, so just creating that really powerful and integrated leadership team that can sit across the two organizations and help to kind of slowly knit them together in a consistent way. So back to that kind of culture piece, that the need to have that really strong leadership that are setting great intent and helping their people and guiding them through that. So that's like stabilize the ship. Then you've got build the new, because when you do a lot of M&A work, what happens is everyone grieves for the old. So it's I used to work in this business, or this is what our organization was before that, and you've almost got to forget that and say, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to do. And for customers, we were like, right, we're going to fundamentally redesign our organization. We're going to create a customer-centric operating model, which is how do we understand and surface the experience and the end-to-end value stream for customers, so we can see some of the complexity and pain points and we can solve for that. We can fundamentally change the experience and then migrate customers almost into that model. So as they're kind of coming through that process, they're also getting the benefit of being in a basically a better model for them, where we're better able to surface them and support with some of the challenges that I touched on around actually customers are looking to energy companies for more. So build the new and then ramp to it. So very supportive of what Neil said in terms of kind of all the test and learn, like actually just start iterating, learn, and from there you can ramp. We had some great protections in place for customers whereby, we would put kind of small scale pilots of customers through, make sure the experience was great, have a really nice communications journey for them so they knew exactly what was going to happen. And then as you build confidence that great, that's all working as we expect, we're really happy with how that's going, we're seeing great service metrics in, the OVO side of the fence, then you start to kind of ramp up and build volume through that. And let's not forget, we were doing this against the backdrop of COVID as well. So you can imagine trying to do M&A while everyone's kind of at home, and cultural transformation. It was challenging, but also incredibly rewarding as well for that reason. And then just just checking with customers, like what are we hearing, what are we seeing, what are they experiencing? We do a lot of closer to the customer work, which I'll hopefully be able to talk a little bit about later. So let's hear the voice of our customers. Let's hear the voice of those that are dealing with our customers as well. Let's make that the front and center of the transformation that we're driving, and make that lead the way.
Okay, then I'm conscious of the fact that we've got a lot of ground to cover. So I'm going to put this question out to all of you. And if you could be very, very brief with your responses, please. Wilco, look, where do you see the opportunities to enhance the customer experience? And how do you think a successful transformation can actually impact that relationship between the customers and the suppliers? If you can be brief, and I'm going to bat it around to the rest of the panel.
Yeah, I keep it very short. Make the best app ever, so that customers can use your app to communicate with you, and to know where the customer is in for the energy bill and the use of energy, and claim your thought leadership in the app, so that customers have one place where they get all the information and where they can interact with you.
Okay, Neil. Oh, can you unmute yourself, please? My lip reading isn't that good.
I wouldn't expect it to be. I'd say the big opportunity that's coming up for retailers is being the integrator of many different energy devices. So whether that's your electric vehicle, your solar inverter, your vehicle to grid charger, all of these new energy devices that are coming on board, I think the big opportunity for retailer is to integrate all of that into one experience for the consumer, because actually that's what the consumer want. They don't want 3 apps. They want one app. They don't think about energy all that much as maybe we like to believe they think of it, right? They want it in one place, and that's the big opportunity, I think, moving forward.
Sounds good to me. Lauren?
I think excellent opportunity for customers to become those kind of decarbonisation champions. It's that we've never had a more engaged customer base than we've got right now. So all the more reason to push net zero, and then for us as a energy retailer to provide the solutions and the ease that helps them make that shift.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, Wilco, I'm going to throw it back to you. And again, if we can keep our answers tight, because there is another section of the discussion that we're going to tackle as well, deep dive into. But look, I want to focus on digitalization. How do you think it can actually help retailers align their sustainability goals with the needs of their customers? Great question. Even though I do say so myself.
Indeed. Indeed. Now, I think help is not the right word in my opinion. I think it's a prerequisite. If we look to the current energy suppliers, for example, in the Netherlands, then if you started in the business, let's say 4 years ago, then my assumption is that your system, your back office is based on technology that's more than 5 to 10 years old. Built on an energy market of 10 years ago, and also a customer need of 10 years ago. And I think you are not going to survive with those systems. So your digital core, that's a prerequisite to survive. Very short.
Short, in fact, that I wasn't able to unmute myself in time, but here I am. Lauren, can you beat his shortness and his brevity here in terms of explaining your approach or your perspective on how OVO is approaching digitalization? Because look, at the end of the day, joking aside, this is really key. Get it right, and it's the crock of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, it's in one word, targeted. That's our approach. Like, which I know probably sounds obvious, but the OVO base that we had pre-acquisition, largely digitally native, really comfortable in that space. Could take them easily through kind of digital journeys, self-serve, all the usual things. The base that we acquired, less digitally native. So we've got that kind of transformation arc in terms of therefore how we take those customers and move them into those more digital spaces. So what we're having to do is think cleverly about segmentation and how we service those customers in different ways, in different channels, and kind of have subtle behavioral shifts into more kind of digital spaces. So, be that in the way that, we're segmenting calls based on like picking bits out of the data, speech analytics, some great tooling and agent assist that in effect does kind of automated workflow. So it makes it super easy for customers to kind of engage with agents, and they're getting prompts and tips, and it's pulling data from lots of different places. And then almost walking customers through how to use online accounts, and very similar to some of the shift that banking went through, probably 10 years ago is arguably where we're trying to play it at the moment. But, this is where there's great opportunity, and, where we can make this simple for customers, that's the key.
Yeah, I mean, I love it as well, the banking analogy, because people often forget the fact that there are these incredible overlaps between financial services and the energy sector. But Neil, I mean, here's like the $6 million question, because look, it is that role of technology. We can see how it helps to change customers' behaviors, it meets their expectations, etc. But how can it actually, or what role can it play in helping retailers evolve? And at the end of the day, delivering for the customers, we've had that, but above all, delivering for the planet.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things I'm quite passionate about is data. So, Wilco talked about these legacy systems, and these legacy systems are so atrocious, right? In some ways, they lock up the data. They actually purposefully make it hard to get the data out because they want to lock you in into sort of a monolithic stack for the next 20 years, right? They would love that. And I think sort of releasing the data and being able to see the data across the energy value chain is one of the key parts of decarbonizing. What I mean by that is being able to track every unit of energy from the moment that it's generated, regardless of where it's generated, if it's distributed energy or centralized energy, wherever it's generated, all the way through the end consumption, right? And if you can pull in telemetry on every unit of energy across that value chain, through the markets, through the meter, all the way to the end consumption, well, now you can actually optimize when and where energy gets used, right? So you have that data across that value chain, across the energy system. It's hopeless to try to optimize it and take advantage of sort of shifting energy to when carbon is going to have a less of an impact, or to take advantage of arbitrage opportunities. Right. So I think data is just a huge part of this.
Absolutely. Of course, there is the danger of getting swamped by too much danger, but let's tackle that another day. But I mean, guys, you'll also be pleased to know that this conversation is really resonating with the audience. So just save your firepower, because you're going to need to tackle quite a few questions. But okay, let me take it back to you as well. I mean, again, if we can be brief, but can you tell us what large-scale operational transformation looks like at Eneco, and how technology fits into that picture? It's not just for the customers, it's also addressing the sustainability issue as well.
Yeah. I already used this example, the launch of our new dynamic pricing product. I saw this question and I was really thinking about this, because we are using there our enterprise data platform. So there's a central, in the private cloud, data platform where everyone stores his data, and where we using that data to provide this product towards the customer. So the market data, the price data, we get it via our trading floor and pass it through to the customer via the app on the commercial domain. And this was a really large scale operation. And I think for the residential customers in the Netherlands, I think one of the biggest operations in the last 5 years, because every business unit, so the commercial part and the trading part, has to make changes in that enterprise data platform. But because of that, we were able to launch it to our customers, and this is the beginning. We will develop in the upcoming weeks and months add-ons on this product, where we are using the data platform, and where customers help to use sustainable energy at the right moment. And I expect also some add-ons, for example, with home batteries. That's the best example what everybody will understand. There we need the position on the trading floor and to interact sustainably with the customer via that enterprise data platform. So this is a very big project within my company.
Sure, and staying on the subject of big projects, I mean, Lauren, you told us about the acquisition that you went through at OVO. I mean, how important was technology in supporting you on that journey? Because it is quite unusual for a smaller company to actually take over one that is substantially bigger, dare I say it, audacious.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much summing up part of the kind of culture of OVO there, I think, Juliet, and look, massive, kind of part of that acquisition was about replatforming the whole of OVO's current and then acquired base onto Kaluza. Like, that's not a light undertaking. So doing that on the basis that, to Neil's point, moving from those monolithic systems where you've got very little flex. And if you think back again to what the energy sector kind of looked like, all suppliers are effectively on the same types of systems with very little agility, very little ability to innovate, and therefore back to the point on getting left behind, being a very traditional retailer, relying on expensive third parties to do any type of change in a kind of outsourced model. So again, in a market where you're struggling to compete on price and you therefore need to find other ways of innovating other products and services, you need to work, you need to have technology, and you need to work with partners that can support that innovation and support that speed to market. And I'd say that's the biggest differentiator for us. Even out with the acquisition, there's the obvious cases around, doing the migration, the efficiencies around that, the brilliance that comes from, bringing two customer bases together and that. But more so in some of the other kind of products and services we've been able to launch quickly. So, types of use tariffs, like our kind of charge anytime. It's about 150 tons of carbon that's been saved off the back of that. Power Move, which is about how we reward customers. I think it's about £15 per month for shifting their power usage when the grid's particularly busy and dirty. So some of the things that kind of Wilco's spoken about, where we need to embrace sort of greener, cleaner energy, things like that just wouldn't be possible if we didn't have more agile kind of technology and the partners to support with that. So for me, that is the key. It's driving us into other markets, other products and services.
Do you know something, Lauren? You've been taking some of the key words out of my mouth. First it was Brexit, now it's agile, it's COVID. But look, I want to throw this question to Neil, and I want you, Lauren, and Wilco to actually give me your response as well. But again, very, very briefly, unlocking the transformational potential of technology is actually crucial, Neil. But how do you think retailers can actually make sure that they are choosing and using the right tech solutions? Because there's always that danger of drowning in it.
Yeah. So number one, I think the old way of procuring software is broken. So a list of 5,000 requirements that represents the way you've done business over the last 10 or 20 years is obviously not the right way to procure the platform for the future, the right technology platform for the future. You really have to look ahead and think about what are the goals, and are we sort of strategically aligned with the technology solution provider? I think that's absolutely key. Number two, there's been a lot of discussion of recently about purchasing a technology platform that's coupled with the operating model. And I'm very wary of that sort of model, to be frank. I think operating models need to change and evolve as your consumer base changes. And so I'd say it is important to think about your operating model as a business and the platform together, but don't overly couple them, because if you do that, you're really locking yourselves into the future. And then the third one, real quick, is making sure the platform performs what it says it will do, but then also offers flexibility around the edges. And so that's some of the things that Lauren talked about. Charge Anytime is a great example. We launched that EV tariff, and it literally in days, we were able to launch it and get it live in the market. That's unheard of. And it was, I think, just yesterday ranked as the #1 EV tariff in all of UK. So we're quite proud of that.
Okay, and Lauren and Wilco, do Neil's words resonate with your experience as retailers? If we can start first with you, Lauren, then Wilco, and then we'll close out this section and move to the final part of the discussion before we take audience questions.
Yeah, definitely. I think the flex piece is key. Like one of the things that I value is having something that I can to an extent plug and play with. So you've got your sort of core platforms, and then how do you integrate other technologies with them? How do you get the flexibility around that? Some things you want to build, some things you want to buy. So you want to have that kind of flexibility. The other piece on op model, I said at the start, I spent quite a lot of my career as a consultant. I'm a big believer that, operating models are never static, and therefore you have to constantly evolve those based on the needs of the business, the needs of the customer, and what's going on in the market. So if you couple things too closely, again, you've lost that ability to be agile. And that really is the theme of today, of now, that, you have to have that agility. You have to be able to respond to change, and your operating model therefore needs to be able to evolve to meet that, and to keep customers at the heart and keep people interested as well.
Okay, and final word on this section to Wilco.
Yes, I do really recognize what Lauren and Neil are saying, and I have also broad experience on this area, because last year we run a big data project and with a new provider, and it was really hard. And what we learned there is if if you're not possible to implementing the platform to your requirements, to your needs, you need to stop the project in time and not try to continue and spend more money to make it work. So you have to stop the project in time, and that's and what's the learning point here? Work always with plan A and plan B, and that you are not locked in that corner with that specific platform, and because then you miss your business and your product for your customer.
Okay, a sound note on which to close out that section. Now, just a reminder as well to our audience, please do send those questions coming through. You know what to do. Some of you have been doing this already. Post them into the box on the right-hand side of the screen, and we will try to get through as many of them as we can in the time available. So, guys, there is a lot to get through before we take those questions. So I'd appreciate it if you can keep your answers brief. Lauren, you've drawn the short straw again, aren't you, the lucky woman? But look, one important area is the challenges that come with aligning technological and operational transformations. What are the key things that must be considered?
I think the future as much as you can. So, you know, how do you design for the future rather than the here and now? How do you anticipate and therefore try and kind of build that in and therefore again, future proofing. Peak complexity, like parallel running of old and new and multiple op models and all of that side of things, hugely challenging. So therefore having strategies to manage that and strong leadership to navigate through that. Fatigue, like I haven't heard the graveyard phrase before, but I feel like it will now stick with me. So thanks for that, Neil. But just, you know, it's tiring. Transformations are tiring. You know, the teams are working hard. It's lots and lots of change to constantly metabolize. So being mindful of that. And again, you know, making sure that there's always a kind of why at the end of something so people can connect back to it. And then trying to do too much in a big bang kind of approach. I'm all about the kind of test, learn, release some early value, see how it's going, keep going, and then you can create these kind of wow moments that people connect to, and that is how you keep a transformation going, and you kind of get through the fatigue that can sometimes bite.
Okay, no more cemetery analogies, please, Neil. But I mean, look, given everything that we've heard, how can we build on that so that you've got the successful synchronization of not just technological transformations, but also operational transformations as well? I know you're going to find another analogy to the cemetery.
I won't. I'll keep it more positive this time. No, it is important for those two things to be in sync, and that one informs the other. Right. So just one example to make this more real. We worked with OVO to identify $60 million in revenue leakage and wholesale settlement optimizations that could be made. Right. And that was leveraging data. So pulling data from all parts of the business, from wholesale market data feeds all the way down to the customer and what devices might be behind the meter, all sorts of data to help find that $60 million of optimization. But the other thing that came out of that project was sort of informing the operating model that if we change our back office processes in this way, we can reduce revenue leakage in the future, not just spot the one-time opportunity, but the ongoing enhancement to the operating model. And so I think that's just a good example of how the technology can inform the operating model and vice versa.
Okay, and Wilco, just to close us out, look, in the context of the ongoing discussion we're having about staying ahead in the race to make sure that you can actually meet those net zero targets and also deliver for customers, how do you think these transformations can actually help energy retailers maintain their competitive edge? Because at the end of the day, that is what it's all about.
Yes, I think we already gave the answer. In my opinion, transformation is the key to survive. And when you approach the retail business and your customers as it was 3 years ago, then you will encounter serious challenges in your customer service and satisfaction. And so I think you have to change. And then I refer back to my answer, what's required. Think across the whole horizontal value streams, implement shared OKRs, make sure that you have enough entrepreneurship in your company, and put much effort on your technical stack. And those ingredients are really important to stay ahead of your business and to make it happen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. You can all take a breather now, okay? Because you're going to need your air to answer the questions. I said we have just got loads of people coming through. And thank you so much to our audience for that, because it really has been an incredibly detailed discussion. We know that the retailers are obviously making fantastic strides when it comes to tackling transformation and delivering a better future, not just for the customers, but also for the planet. And you have been responding accordingly. So thank you so much for that. We will tackle the questions in just a second. But before we do that, please, if you can, online audience, take a moment to rate today's webinar so far. I think we've all been brilliant, but I would say that because I'm biased, aren't I? But you should see a link to the feedback form. It's just below the video player on your website, okay? Or web page, I should say. Now, your response is, of course, confidential, but the reason why we want the feedback is so that we can work out what we can do better to make you happy. Okay, so please don't forget the feedback form. Panel, are you ready for the questions? Of course you are. Before we get on to that, we don't do hesitation. If there's hesitation, I look at somebody and choose them to answer. Isn't that right, Wilco? I'm just giving you advance notice here, but the opening question, being customer-centric is clearly key, and that is great to hear. How do you ensure that simplification isn't achieved at the cost of personalisation? Who would like to tackle that one, Neil?
I got the cue. I got the cue. So I think first off, measuring everything. So, I talked about this massive migration project we've just finished, and measuring every single type of transaction is really, really important. So how easy is it to log in? How easy is it to do a basic payment transaction, billing transaction? So I think that's just step one, making sure that you actually have the right data probe. So you're actually measuring everything. And then from there, iterating and personalizing more and more and more. What I'd warn against is sort of starting off with sort of the perfect kind of personalization that, that divvies up all your customers into 100 different segments and then designing and building towards that. Because guess what? You're going to be wrong about what those 100 segments are. So I'd say start simple, start small, measure everything, and iterate your way out.
Sounds good to me. Would anyone else like to add to that before we move on to some more questions?
The only thing I'd say is I don't think they're kind of mutually exclusive. I think you can simplify and target the personalization. I think that there's a good kind of harmony there, because in effect, I'm a massive advocate of segmentation, not to the point that it loses all its value and it's really subscale, but that you can devise a range of treatments for customers that are suited to their needs, so they're kind of personal, but you're also simplifying in the sense that how you organize, you're able to take cost out of your business as a result of that. So I think there is a happy ground. It's just about being thoughtful and purposeful about how you enact it.
Okay, Wilco, would you like to add to that before I move on to the next question?
No, please go move forward.
That's nice, because the next question is actually directed at you. Given Wilco's note on seasonal energy wholesale costs, how can we align government policies with market incentives to promote renewable investments, especially given recent UK wind farm bid failures due to low prices? I mean, okay, they've mentioned you, Wilco. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the UK scene here, but that's a reference to the U-turn, for want of a slightly better term, from the part of the British government. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but would you like to address this before I move it to the rest of the panel, if they want to answer it too?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the situation in the UK, but the conversation with the government is so important. And if I refer back to the Netherlands, with the price cap, we have also a price cap in the Netherlands. We designed that so the energy companies in the Netherlands together with the government. And so for me, that's the key to success in this transformation. It's not in one way. We need the conversation with the government and help them, and they have to help us. So we have to do it together, and to make it happen. And but again, I'm not aware of the situation in the UK, so I can't be very precise on this question.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, the whole point about it is that governments need to work with the retailers, and they need to talk. But Lauren, if I'm going to be deliberately controversial here, I could actually say that your industry was talking to the government, and yet, in spite of that, it's a road back. It went in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I think. Look, I mean, it's absolutely essential that we move away from fossil fuels and into other renewable decarbonisation solutions. We saw the impact of the reliance on upstream oil and gas and the conflict in Russia and Ukraine on the cost of energy, and the absolute awful impact that had on customers. We have to find other solutions. Some of what's happened is flipped the discussion into security of supply rather than diversity of that. But that's the change that we still believe very much is needed. OVO's got a long-standing tradition of pushing the kind of green agenda and having a strong voice out into government and policy around the change that we believe needs to happen. I think the reality is that the transition to net zero is tough, and it's also, there's not necessarily an answer to the affordability challenges in terms of customers taking up other products and services. So, I can speak to what, we're working hard to find ways of bridging that gap for customers, and, some of the products and services in the tariff space are the kind of first small step that we can support customers on. And then we need to find ways of opening that market up to the mass to really kind of drive the movement that we need to see.
Okay, Neil, let me put this question to you. It's a 2-in-1 question, effectively, but we've got one here. How can you balance the need to serve customers with overarching net zero approach? And how can we better engage customers with net zero, given other priorities they may have at the moment? So it's really 2 questions saying the same thing, effectively.
Yeah. So for me, it comes down in the future, will come down to 2 things. So one, are there the right market mechanisms that exist? So both the retailer can launch economically feasible tariffs and product bundles, but the consumer can also benefit. And that seems simple on the surface, but I think we're moving towards a world where that actually can become a reality. So half-hourly settlements has been a big topic in the UK, and there's actually real progression towards that. That will actually unlock quite a bit of value, both for the retailer and the consumer. And both of those entities, it has to work for both entities, or you'll just end up with the wrong incentives. So I think that's number one. And then I think it's the job of the retailer to then take what is actually a very complex set of rules and wholesale markets and try to boil that down for the consumer in a way that's really, really simple. So that's why we alluded to charge anytime as a sort of a simple proposition. I think that is a beautiful and elegant way of actually communicating with customers on what is actually something that's quite complex behind the scenes, right? So basically, you pay one rate for consuming your electric vehicle, for consumption on your electric vehicle, and a different one for the rest of your home. The electric vehicle rate's a lot cheaper, but the trade for that is that we get to manage your electric vehicle usage, right? And it's so simple. Consumers understand it, they love it, right? But behind the scenes, it's super complex. And so it's really the role of the retailer to offer something that's simple and understandable for the consumer, or there's no chance of us actually meeting the decarb and net zero goals, because if it's complex for consumers, they'll never do it.
Okay, and can I get the response to that 2-in-1 question from yourself, Wilco, and also you, Lauren?
Yeah, I think I totally agree by the explanation of Neil. So the role of the energy supplier will change. Today, a long story short, we procure the energy and send an invoice, and of course we have some nice products. But the role of the energy supplier will change in more transactions and helping the customer to unlock the market. That's one side. But the other side is there are also a lot of customers, they don't have an electric car. They don't have the opportunity to optimize the energy flows. So I think it's a really responsibility that the energy supplier there offers also products like a fixed price, but that it's really clear that those products, maybe they are more expensive because the energy supplier makes more cost on it. So I think segmentation is here the key word, that the energy supplier will transform in more operating transactions. But on the other hand, we have to also provide stable products towards customers who cannot charge an electric car or optimize a heat pump, for example.
Okay, and the final word to close this out, please, to you, Lauren, in response to that.
I think we just got to make it super simple. I think, those of us that work in the industry overcomplicate it perhaps because, a few of us would admit to perhaps being energy geeks and therefore think something's really understandable. And, speaking to customers in simple customer-centric language, talking to them about products and services that solve their needs and be clear on what those needs are in the here and now. And then, how we can get them engaged in that journey. And as I say, there's no better time to have that conversation. There's never been such an engaged customer base, and I certainly feel a huge responsibility as an energy retailer to be part of that, that journey for our customers.
What I can say about all three of you is that you have not overcomplicated anything. You have all been absolutely brilliant. And sadly, time is our enemy because we do have to close out. But I hope that you've actually enjoyed the past hour and that it's offered some important insights and also triggered a few ideas on all things transformation wherever you are in the sector. Thanks once again to all of you for sending in your questions, and so sorry that we didn't have the time to get through all of them. They were fantastic questions. But also, if you haven't already, please, a reminder, do fill in the feedback form. It is just below the video player on the webpage. We'd like to hear your thoughts. And in fact, we value your opinion because it's your values, it's your thoughts which help to shape our discussions going forward. But for now, if you are hungry for more insights, I think you are, because I could actually hear a few stomach rumbles, whether it's on smart networks, digital twins, or indeed innovations in the customer experience personalization zone, please, why not come along to our event, Future of Utilities Smart Energy. It's happening this November, the 8th and the 9th. So one for the diary, the 8th and the 9th. That is the Future of Utilities Smart Energy event. It's going to be good. We're going to be hearing from the likes of OVO. Now, I wonder who's going to be there. Perhaps that's you, Lauren.
I don't think it is.
Well, someone's going to be there from OVO. Also, EDF, National Grid ESO, UK Power Networks, Vattenfall, and many, many more. It's going to be a great day, fantastic conversation to be had. But in the meantime, we hope to see you there. Have a great afternoon. Take care, keep safe, and we'll see you again in the not too distant future.